Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the weekly MMA Cycles Market Update. Today is Wednesday, November 5th, 2025. I'm Gianni DePoce, your host, and we're seeing a bounce higher in many markets today as we are in this intense period of geocosmic activity. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Start off by looking at the Dow Jones Industrial Average. We are in the Mercury retrograde shadow right now. And we're also fresh off a multi-day correction from the all-time high that was registered last week on the 29th of October. This week, no shortage of geocosmic signatures. We started off on Sunday with Venus squaring Jupiter, and then we had Mars trine Neptune on Monday. And then yesterday, we had Mars opposite Uranus. And the same day, Mars ingressed into the sign of Sagittarius. Today is a big full moon, beautiful moon in the sky. Hopefully, you see it where you are and it's not too cloudy. But tomorrow, the geocosmic activity continues because you have Venus moving into the sign of Scorpio. On Friday, there's two major aspects happening. You have Venus squaring Pluto and then Uranus retrograding back into the sign of Taurus. So, major reset, I think, from a sentiment standpoint that we're seeing in stocks. One thing that I'm seeing is that every time we have a multi-day pullback or even like a correction that's just a couple percent from the highs, there's a lot of bears out there saying, oh, I told you so. Well, we have been respecting the trend. We have been respecting the cycles here at MMA as well as the geocosmics. Now, going into a Mercury retrograde period, we're going to be looking for some more choppy price action. It's going to be starting on Sunday and going to be in effect until the end of the month, more or less. And around that time, you're also going to have Saturn changing directions as well. So, the choppy price action could continue, but if we look at this from a simple trend standpoint, this is a higher low here. And what I like today is how the NASDAQ is outperforming to the upside. We saw it lead the sell-off to the downside yesterday. That's a really good sign. Every time, you see these AI stocks like NVIDIA sell off, everyone says, oh, the AI bubble is over and this and that. And really, what I'm looking at is another phase of the AI mania. We think about the geocosmics next year. By the way, it is forecast season. I'm writing my columns for the forecast 2026 book, which, by the way, you need to check that out on our website. It's a great book, a great guide for the year ahead. And Ray's been writing this forecast book now for over 40 years, so it's pretty remarkable. What we are able to pick up on when we are analyzing what's coming up this time of year for the following year. But one of the big outer planetary aspects, and we've been talking about it a lot in this weekly show as well, is the Uranus-Pluto trine. Well, I think that in many ways we're overlooking what could be a major impact to the biotech and healthcare sector. We've been thinking about artificial intelligence through the lens of, semiconductors and data centers and, all this other stuff. Well, how about, the impact that it may have on healthcare and biotech especially? So I like that. Pluto. Yeah, I wrote about this a little bit in the free weekly column that Ray asked me to write last week. Pluto has a lot to do with medicine as well. It has a connotation to poison, but like in many ways, medicine is poison beyond a certain dose. At lower doses, it has a healing effect. So you have this trine between Uranus, which is innovation, and Pluto, which has a medicinal property as well. There's the death, there's the rebirth, and that's part of the healing process as well. So I think seeing artificial intelligence make its way into the healthcare and biotech sector is really just the next phase of the artificial intelligence boom. And you're starting to see this play out. I mean, it's remarkable when you look at these long-term charts of some of these ETFs tied to biotech, and you've not hit new all-time highs since 2021. So we're talking years. We're talking years here that it's not hit a new all-time high. And you go back and look at the 2010s, this was one of the strongest sectors in the first half of that decade. In fact, a former student of MMTA, and actually one of our current mentors for MMTA right now, Jennifer Sharon, has done some exceptional work on the cycles of the biotech sector and the geocosmics tied into it right now. So it's a really exciting time in that space. Just wanted to bring that to your attention. We're also seeing a nice bounce here in crypto today. Bitcoin up significantly off of yesterday's lows. Even Ethereum, we had talked about looking for a 20% or a greater move with Venus in the sign of Libra, and we got it, except it was to the downside, not to the upside. So considering the potential for a cyclical reset here, which could set us up for a big rally into 2026. So looking at that possibility right now, you take a look at precious metals, gold and silver still chopping around. Still looking for this chop to continue here in the near term as we fall into an intermediate term cyclical bottom. Silver is up nicely today as well. We are looking at the potential of the government reopening here. Bonds not liking that news. However, as I'm looking at the geocosmics this week, specifically Venus square Pluto, I think that we could be setting up for a reversal once again in bonds. So Fed kind of threw out some doubt when they cut interest rates last week over rate cuts in December, but it does look like it is going to happen still. And so we would look for interest rates to continue their decline and for bond prices to continue higher. You take a look at crude oil, still struggling to sustain any sort of rally here. Not even the trine between Mars and Neptune could get this going this week. So that is still looking pretty bearish. But, Puyon's been all over the cyclical timing and the backdrop for that big bottom and where we might go before that actually happens. So it's going to be in the forefront, especially in 2026, with Saturn and Neptune finally separating from one another in the sign of Aries. And I think that's going to lead to the big geocosmic catalyst to get crude oil moving in the right direction. You take a look at the U.S. dollar here. It is still giving the euro some issues. The euro's been losing some value, but looking for a potential reversal here with Venus aspects coming up before the end of the week, and the dollar yen has been holding up as well too. So, something to keep in mind when it comes to the carry trade implications. Carry trade is simply selling the lower yielding currency to buy the higher yielding currency. And then a lot of times these speculators are buying tech and stuff like that. So that's what's happening right now, the lay of the land, the lay of the macroeconomic and the geocosmic land right now. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to be publishing the latest edition of the monthly cycles report early next week, so you can find the details about MMA's flagship monthly report at our website at www.mmacycles.com. And of course, MMTA, we have a couple of weeks left in course one. There still are some spots open if you wish to join us. Just send us an email, customer service at mmacycles.com, and I will reach out to you. But that's all for now, everyone. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Take care now. See you next time.